Welcome to Aledi's Devil's Talk. Here's your host, Enrique Aledi's.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Devil's Talk. I'm Enrique Aledi's, and so it happened today. Lindy Ruff has officially been fired as the Devils head coach, and honestly, I think a lot of people saw this coming, and for me personally, it's disappointing, but I definitely think the right move was to let him go, at least if not now, at some point in the offseason or towards the end of the season, and then definitely in the offseason, because it just hasn't been going well. And look, I know a lot of Devils fans are happy because they hated Lindy for not whatever the reason, but I mean, because we didn't have a lot of success. But I think there was always this, I don't know, I guess there was always this hate that I never really subscribed to how much people hated him, especially Devils fans. I don't know why that's the case, and I think I've mentioned in other videos before. So I was lucky enough to work with NHL goalie coach Mitch Korn, and he is a guy who worked with the Sabres. Mitch Korn worked with the Sabres for so many years, and he worked with Lindy Ruff, and I have heard nothing but amazing things about Lindy as a coach, as a person. So for me, I've always been a fan of him, especially I was also a fan of those 99 Sabres teams and, things like that. And to see what he did last year with the team, and I know a lot of people want to give credit to Brunette, and there's definitely a lot of credit to go around. But look, I feel like Lindy did a hell of a job last year. He was up for I think Coach of the Year last year, a nominee, I think. But look, bottom line is they haven't done well this year, and regardless of what the issues are, whether it's the injuries, which it isn't, there were big injuries to our team. Hamilton had a big blow to our defensive core. Goaltending has not been good this season. Offense has had a bit of a tough time really getting goals and producing. Even if they've generated stuff, they haven't gotten as many goals as they wanted to compared to in the past. And just overall, I think that the season has just not turned out at all in the way that Devil fans wanted to. And I feel like even if we didn't, let's say, achieve the same heights as we did last year, I feel like the level of play and where we're at right now is just far below of what we should be, right? Like, we don't have to be first place and have a huge cushion like we did last year for the playoffs, but I do think we should be more than just barely in the hunt compared to or relative to where we are now. And it's been frustrating, it's been disappointing. But again, for me personally, that it does fall a lot on the coach. And I think what's frustrating to me, though, I think just kind of the last thing I'll say about kind of defending Lindy here is a lot of the fans just are going to look at stats and not really necessarily watch or even know the game as well. And they'll make conclusions and they'll make opinions based upon just the wrong things, right? Like, just because, we don't score in a game or whatever, people think, oh, that's Lindy's fault. We didn't get goals, it's Lindy's fault. Oh, well, the defense breakdown, that's Lindy's fault. It's like, at some point, right, the defense and the offense, they have to execute, and the goaltending has to get better, right? It's just even this past weekend, I was at both the games, and Dawes has been playing for a long time, these past couple of 10 games or whatever. You think he played 9 out of the however many games. And people were questioning him starting Dawes against the Kings. But I feel like if he started Schmidt and Schmidt didn't go well, then they would be saying well, how come you pulled Dawes out early in the third period or in the second period of the Ducks game and he didn't start him against the Kings? It's like he can't win, and that's the nature of being a coach. That's the nature of how it is. And I just feel like even dating back to last year, everyone wanted to do the whole fire Lindy chance, which I just didn't. I have to say, just a side note, I'm not a fan of this new generation or era of, it's not even generational, it's more like just this new era of Devil fans who sometimes just feel entitled. I don't these things take time, and I understand we've had a lot of bad years since dating back to after 2012 or whatever, but still I don't know, I feel like I've been a fan since 95 or whatever. And even when we had a lot of success from the mid 90s all the way up to 2012, so it's kind of hard to argue or hard to say there were any moments of really downs. Although the season after 95, we didn't even make the playoffs, right? That wasn't make the playoffs. And it wasn't like people were saying we should trade Brodeur or trade Stevens and trade Niedermeyer. It wasn't like people weren't calling for people's heads, in the same way that the fan base does now. But it is what it is. I just still think it's I don't know. There's sometimes a little bit of that. I guess they call it toxicity in that fan base. Like just because things don't work out well in the beginning doesn't mean it's gonna. You have to pull the plug right away, you know. So it is what it is. But that's that. And again, I'm not saying by any means that Lindy deserves to stay throughout another season or even to the end of the year. I think it was his time to go. And I also felt like my opinion is that maybe the one of the reasons why he wasn't let go earlier is probably because of the players that really like him, and again, I have no proof of that. I have no like actual like I don't know anyone that would, some source or whatever. I just feel like you look at if this was any other team that has the star power or at least the core group, you have the Hughes brothers, you have Nico and Brat and all them like, and to not have the success, I feel like the management definitely looks at Jack Hughes as the future, and he shares the future. And I feel like they have to have conversations with them, going like, "Hey, like, what do you think about Lindy? Like, like, how's your take on Lindy? Do you like him? Do you want to keep him, or maybe not keep him, or not ask them if they want to keep him, but just what's the vibe there?" And I feel like for a while, Hughes and the young guys, except maybe Holtz, because I guess that's the thing. People think Holtz and Lindy have drama, which it is weird that Holtz is always on like the fourth line or whatever. I don't agree with that. I don't think deserves to be in the fourth line. I think he deserves to be much higher. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how a coach would stay with a team for as long as Lindy has, given the level of or the lack of success they've had this year. But yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for sure. Again, I was a fan of Lindy. And that's definitely not a popular Devils opinion. Everyone hates him, apparently. But I thought he did a pretty good job for us. But I mean, look, moving forward, I just think we got, Travis Greene as the interim head coach, former coach of the Canucks. I don't think he had a lot of success with the Canucks there. But, you never know. It could always be a different thing, a different look, different team. Doesn't get any easier for him because he's going to go up against the Panthers in the first home game as a head coach here for the Devils. So, and if you look at also, I think the existing coaching staff, so Ryan McGill, Chris Taylor, Sergey Breland, and goalie coach Dave Rogalski, they're going to still be in place, which I think for now, I think that's smart just because you don't want to blow everything up completely. Depending on where we are in the season, you don't want to blow everything up completely. But I personally don't think that everyone's going to be back next year in terms of coaching staff, because I just think that the Devils need a whole new look, or at least a whole new attitude towards how they kind of execute their game plan or whatever game plan they have. I just feel like it has not worked well at all. It just seems like it's the same thing over and over again every game, and teams kind of know the book on the Devils now. So it's been tough to watch. And I was at the game. I was at the Ducks game and the Kings game this past weekend. And I think the Kings game, both were disappointing, but I think the Kings game was much more disappointing because it just seemed like after they let in that second goal, it didn't seem like they had any chance at that point. It was only 2-1, but it just seemed like at that point the game felt over, honestly. And it's been a tough season. But you look at like going back and you look at what Lindy Ruff was tasked to do, and he was kind of tasked to help with guys like Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, and Hischier. I think those three guys, or those young guys coming up, were back in starting at 2020. I think when he first started, that was his task, was to build those guys up. And I think the way he led the team, my opinion, and this is just my opinion based on what I'm seeing and just kind of like from a hockey standpoint, was like, I feel like Lindy Ruff's core strategy relied upon a strong defensive core with pretty good goaltending, above average goaltending, and then have our offense develop into this kind of powerhouse that we saw for a little bit. But because again, I'm talking dating back, right? Like not last year or even this year, but just dating back. Like I feel like his whole plan was to kind of build from the back end on out. Because I feel like that's kind of with Jack Hughes being young, and then we have a bunch of young players. That's kind of the progression of how you grow into the NHL. Is you just don't want to already put like the put the baton in Jack's hands or Heeshear's hands or whoever, and just be like, all right, now you guys have to be the highest scoring team or whatever. And again, last year they had a great, offense had a great run, a lot of breakout play by not only Hughes or Brad, but there also I thought Mercer played really well compared. But this year it's just been really hard. It's been really difficult. And Lindy has a record with the Devils of 128 wins, 125 losses, and 28. I think that's OT losses. I think that's what the last stat is. But over more than 3 seasons, and last season they had a really good playoff run there. So and he even signed a extension last year, or I think earlier this year, right? Was it last year? Earlier this year? And that's tough, right? It's tough to kind of you give him an extension, but then you come out with the season you have now. It's disappointing. I think at this point for me, it's pretty hard to not think the season's over. But again, I don't want to be, unless we're mathematically out of it, I don't want to be too negative and cynical here about the future. But it's tough. It's going to be a tough thing. I mean, coaching changes at the end of the season are always a tough thing, and it's just shake up to the team. And I think, if you look back to 2000 season when the Devils fired Fatorik, it's a very different circumstance. Like, it's not like we're gonna fire. Well, who knows? Maybe we could make a run for it. But I just think the reason why we are falling apart a little bit has a lot of moving pieces that can't be fixed with just changing the head coach. Head coach is a big part of it, but I do think there's a lot of things that have to be fixed as well. And it'll be interesting to see what other moves Fitzy makes towards the deadline. But again, I feel like, overall, I think Lindy Ruff, my opinion, had a great season last season. And I feel like he just kind of ran into a bad shitstorm a little bit with injuries and bad goaltending. And his coaching style, in my opinion, definitely suffered from not having like a good core defense and having guys like Ryan Graves leave. And I don't know. I mean, I was never the biggest fan of Severson, but just the fact that he's gone, who's a veteran, on the back end, it's tough. And that kind of puts some holes. And when you're relying on Luke Hughes and Shimon Nemec to be your guys' like, I don't know, backbone defensively, it's a pretty difficult fucking task for a 19-year-old to, or whatever they are, however old they are, 19, 20 years old, pairing in the NHL. That's very hard, very difficult to do, and it's tough. And I think a lot of the pressure has been placed on those two kids' shoulders to really be a solid defensive back there. And it's just been tough. And there have been great moments. I'm not disappointed with Luke Hughes' play at all this season, but he has made a bunch of mistakes, and it's cost some goals and things like that. And the offense sometimes too, the lack of production has also not helped. And then our goaltending hasn't helped. So it's just a big old pile of shit that we kind of ran into. So yeah, it's hard. I think having such high expectations with the Devils just fan base and also just the organization, it's tough to go through periods like this. And I also think it makes there's more impatience when it comes to okay, we have a team that can actually go. Why aren't what's going on, and so yeah, I expect a lot more. My opinion is I expect a lot more changes. I think this Travis Greene interim role, my opinion, we'll see what he does. We'll see how he performs. I just don't know. I feel like we need a new coach completely. In my opinion, we need a new coach completely. I think it's too early at least for me personally, to kind of just to look at a list of who could be a new coach. I haven't really done too much research in terms of who could fit with our group of guys, and also who are our guys next year, right? I mean, of course we got Jack, we're gonna have Hughes brothers, we're gonna have Nico and all them, but who are the rest of the people that are gonna be on our team? Who's our goalie for next year? So we'll see. But as of right now, Lindy's out. Personally, I felt appreciated Lindy Ruff's time. I think I've only heard amazing things about him as a human being, good coach. I know, again, Devils fans don't agree with him being a good coach, but again, I just think that it was a tough year. A lot of things just went sideways that were out of his control, but then there were things that in his control, like line combinations, goaltending situation, just strategy. He didn't really adapt in a sense. Like there are a lot of things that, again, I'm not trying to absolve him of this. Like, I'm not saying he didn't deserve to get fired. I'm not saying that he didn't do anything wrong. There was a lot of things wrong. You could go down the list. But I feel like, look, it's what's done is done, right? All the Devil fans who want him gone, he's gone, right? So you guys are happy. I don't need to literally walk down the list of things that I feel like he did wrong, because he's gone already. So it doesn't matter at this point. Now it's just move forward and try to find a coach that can, bring something new and different, and bring something positive in terms of just like the strategy and how we, execute and use the players that we have or who we will have to kind of move forward and get some success. But yeah, it's these kind of seasons are tough for any team, but I think especially for the Devils that had such a great run last year, we expected a lot more. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with the rest of the season. Hopefully they can make a run, but even if they, I don't know. That's also another thing too. It's like, do you want them to make a run? Like, and I don't mean to be like, again, a negative fan, but like, this team is not this team is not like suited to go up against like the Rangers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not gonna if the Devils somehow make the playoffs and they go up against the Rangers, I don't think they're gonna beat that Ranger team. They're not gonna even beat the Flyers. And like this team lost to the Ducks, and then it's like, so it's against Philly or against the Florida coming up. That's going to be a tough game. Like every game now from here on out is a tough game. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, again, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it's over, but it's going to be really hard to really expect a playoff run from the Devils this season, and it's disappointing. But yeah. So, that's it. Like that's where the Devils are right now. Lindy Ruff is out, and we'll see what happens moving forward. We'll see what happens with the goaltending situation. I really hope they get something sorted out. As much as I personally have been a fan of Akira Schmid and Dawes, Vanacek has definitely struggled, but I do not think that at this point, like, we could just rely on the goalies we have now for a long-term solution, because I don't know if they've really played themselves in a way where they deserve a full season. And it sounds terrible. It sucks to say, but it is the way it kind of is. It's like, I don't know how much they haven't really shown that they could really be given the ball and run with it. And I feel like this was their year, especially Akira Schmid and Vanacek. Like, this was their year to prove like, hey, I can run with it. And I know like Schmid is very young though. I will say with him, that's actually, I'll take that back. With him, because he's very young and only 3 seasons ago he was playing in the ECHL. Was it 2 seasons? Like before the Ranger playoffs, he was playing in the ECHL, like not too long ago. Bottom line, right? And he's a very young goalie. Goalies take time to develop, so it's very hard to have that. I hope that they keep on to him, or hold on to him for a little bit longer, because he's got such good size, and when he plays well, he really does play well. I really like the way he plays in terms of just like managing his crease, managing his space. He's very calm. Like those are things that you'd want in today's goalie, but he hasn't always performed as well as we had wanted. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. I know that Markstrom thing has been an interesting situation. UC Saros is a name that's tossed around. Yeah, honestly, I don't even know like exactly what other goalies in terms of like real possible chances we have. But I'll be just like everybody else, just waiting and seeing who can be our new 10D. But also, I do also think that we got to get bigger a little bit, right? We got to get more size on our team. We got to get more of a defensive stability. Like I just feel like I want a stay-at-home defenseman that doesn't need to pinch. Like how many times does Kevin Ball and Brendan Smith and sometimes Siegenthaler, how much times is going to pinch? Like, I want a reliable stay-at-home defenseman, and if he needs to shoot, like, then he'll just hold the blue and take slap shots. I mean, I know Hamilton's a good slap shot, but Hamilton is more of an offensive defenseman, in my opinion. I want a stay at home defenseman, a physical one, and also just like on the even forwards we have Lazar and like I feel like Timo Meyer was supposed to bring some force, and we got Curtis McDermott, but like I want like a grittier, bit more of a not just enforcer, but like they're gonna lay the body down, right? And a line that the teams are afraid of. No one's afraid of our. I feel like there's no line that we have that any team is afraid of. We will get outbodied, regardless of what line we have on, regardless of what team we play. Like there is no team that's actually afraid of us. They just know that we're fast, and when they stop our speed, we don't have a whole lot. I just feel like that's what's been the case this year. So it's been for me annoying to see us get bodied or outbodied every time, out checked, out hit, out physical. Like we don't have an answer. Like we don't have an answer to the Rangers like Trouba. We don't have an answer now to Rempe, or what's the name, like Rempe, whatever, like that stud of that fighter right now on the Rangers. But even just like any other team that has an enforcer, right? I mean, if we're playing the Panthers, right? They have a lot of the Kachuk, like they have a lot of really good antagonizers on the team. We don't have anyone that's going to step up to them. And then no one's going to be afraid of our team on that squad. Even on the Anaheim, Gudis, no one's afraid of. Gudis is not afraid of anybody on our team. Nobody, right? Whereas years ago, we'd have Stevens, Niedermayer, Danico, and then years later we'd have Colin White, and then we have Jansen, and then just like we have even Jonah was huge, right? Like you would want to get in front of him, and then even Kozlov, like he was still big, like he wasn't like the biggest hitter, but he was big, right? And Volchenkov, like we had size, so there was a level of like there were some lines in our team years ago that would make people afraid of us, and I feel like this year we don't have it. I love that we are a speed driven team, but we do need some physicality, especially, and we need some toughness, and I don't feel like we have that right now. But we'll see. Again, we'll see what they do moving forward. But that's been a tough run for Devils, the Devils and the Devils fans here this year. But it is what it is. So that's it. Lindy Ruff is at, and Travis Greene's in, and we'll see what the Devils have for the rest of the year, because it doesn't look too good. But we will wait and see.